Voters in Minnesota will decide whether their constitution will define marriage. They will vote on an amendment to define marriage as between one man and one woman. News 8's Jenna Traum brings us the views of two Winona residents who stand on both sides of the issue for reasons you may not expect.
Mark, same-sex marriage is already banned in Minnesota, but that law could be overturned by the legislature or by a judicial ruling. So having it as an amendment to the state constitution would make it a lot more difficult to legalize same-sex marriage. And a recent Star Tribune poll shows Minnesota voters are split in a dead heat, with 48% in favor of the amendment and 47% opposed.
Jamie Ann Myers knows what she wants for her 46th wedding anniversary on Tuesday. She wants Minnesota to vote no on an amendment to the state constitution that would define marriage as between one man and one woman.
That would be one of the biggest gifts that we could have on our anniversary.
You see, Jamie Ann wasn't always Jamie Ann.
James was my birth assigned name.
And she's got another important anniversary coming up too. On November 16th, 8 years ago, she came out to her wife that she was struggling with her gender identity.
I was afraid of losing everything in my life. I was afraid of losing Peggy, my children, my parents, my friends, my job, my house, my respect of my students. Everything.
But she didn't lose everything. Myers and her wife have remained married throughout the transition. And she says their situation proves that defining marriages between one man and one woman isn't always as clear-cut as it might seem.
Does that mean that the marriage is no longer valid? It is valid. It's valid in the eyes of the law. It's valid in the eyes of God.
70% of likely voters who plan to vote in favor of that amendment say their faith leaders had an impact on their decisions. But Winona resident Mac McCulley says religion has nothing to do with his decision to vote yes.
No, just common sense.
He has no issue with same-sex couples having the same rights. For him, it's a matter of tradition.
I don't agree with them calling it a marriage. They can have their rights, but it's not a marriage because for thousands of years, it's been man and woman.
And on Tuesday, Minnesota voters will decide whether it will stay that way in their state constitution.
So what happens if the amendment does not pass? In that case, the state's 1997 Defense of Marriage law banning same-sex marriage would still be in effect. If the amendment does pass, the only way to legalize same-sex marriage in the state would be another statewide vote to overturn it.
All right, thank you, Jenna. 30 states have amended their constitutions to limit marriage rights to heterosexual couples.